So we're going live on Facebook officially
So you're
now.
saying that they're all losers, huh?
In a manner of speaking, yes. Sharing. Sharing is caring. I have to stop saying that. It's getting annoying. It's just a habit. Going live on Facebook. See you in 20 minutes. Here come some more people. All right. What is this one called today? Tracking inventory with Airtable? Something like that? I need the official title for the title of the live feed. Use Airtable to
use
track
Airtable to track inventory.
Use Airtable to track inventory. All right, I'm hitting go live. Here we go. Oh, we scared somebody away already. I heard the exit chime. All right, hold on. We're going live. Redirecting. It even says redirecting to the Facebook Live page, and then it just takes me to my news feed. But this, I have to say, this morning was a little better than usual. Kind of got right there. Hold on. Just kind of heading over to the live feed on Facebook so I can monitor it for questions. All right, let me do it this way. If you go to the actual videos part, it doesn't get you into the same kind of view as when you find it in the feed and click on the timestamp. And I find that view to be the easiest to work with. I guess it ends up being kind of the same. What do I know? All right, I see Gina's joining us live on Facebook, not in the panel. All right, good morning. Happy Friday. It's February 22nd, 2019. Holy cow.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Who said that?
Sarah.
Sarah, hi.
Hi.
Can you believe we're almost done with like the first quarter?
Oh, don't even go there.
It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Does everybody get their 1099s done?
Oh,
come on, that's funny.
What's the deadline for the 1099s?
It's tomorrow. I think it's just always tomorrow. Speaking of deadlines, I don't know if you all noticed, this morning I rolled out a course on Kajabi. I've got the two that I've been talking about that I'm building out. I've already started creating the content. Pretty much my whole Saturdays are set aside now to get this done. That's the Accounting Mosaic course. But someone put a bug in my ear. That someone is someone a lot of us know and love. Her name is Mariette Martinez. And she suggested to me that there's a section of the 97 and up course that she felt would do well as a standalone course, that a lot of people really want this. And so we rolled it out as of last night. I'm going to add in a few bonus lessons that I've already got. I just need to upload them. But right now it's a complete and robust course on how to become a content creation machine. I'll show you what that looks like. If we just go to nerdenterprises.mykajabi.com and I'll go to the store. It's right here, how to become a content creation machine.
Share screen.
Thank you. I always need that reminder. These are essentially the lessons, right? And I want to preface this a little bit, and I promise I'm going to get into Airtable, but I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity to tell you all about this while you're here. You know, and I've had a lot of the same conversation, it feels like, with a lot of different people, where they'll say to me, in fact, I just had it with somebody this week, an accountant from, I think it was Oregon. And I asked her, I said, where do you get most of your clients from? And she said, most of them are word of mouth. And I said, that's awesome. That's the best way to get clients. And she said, yeah, but I need to get into this whole online, marketing thing. And I said, great. And she's like, but I don't know where to start. And I said, well, you probably want to start by writing. And she says, but I'm not a good writer. And I said, you know how you become a good writer? By writing. It's, you know, it's not something, it's not a skill people are born with. It's a skill people learn. It's a skill I learned. And when you get to this lesson right here, how to use Yoast SEO to optimize your writing, that literally teaches you how to write better. Because the plugin that we use called Yoast with WordPress walks you through how to optimize your writing. But the point of optimizing your writing is to make it easier for people to read, to improve your actual writing, bearing in mind that when you're writing for people online, they're going at 1,000,000 miles a minute. And, you know, so it needs to be written very simply, even if your target audience is of above average intelligence. Anyway, so this course is available and it's complete. All the lessons are there right up through here. And actually, there's a few bonus lessons I added in last night that aren't shown here in this outline. So here it is. Go check it out. If you're interested, reach out to me. I'll send you the link in case you have trouble finding it. It's on my new Kajabi site, which is where all of my courses are going to start going to, starting with these other two new ones, really kind of three, but this one I'm not writing, the Accountant's Mosaic. And we have, this is going to just, I'm changing the name to the Advisory Mosaic. And you can come over here and read the descriptions and get a sense of what these courses are about. And of course, you can ask me anything, anytime, anywhere. You know how to find me. So with that in mind, let's take a look at Airtable. Here we are.
Seth?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that for people who don't feel comfortable writing in terms of grammar, if they use the app Grammarly, Grammarly has a free edition, and it's really very helpful.
I've seen the ads
Grammarly
for
is
it, and it looks like
fantastic.
something we should all be using, actually.
Oh, I didn't know they had a free version. I pay, it's worth it. Whatever, I'll pay anything for.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, granted, now if you pay for it, you get more out of it, and it really tracks what you're writing. I came across it when my daughter was writing in college, and just got addicted to it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
But it has those little silly grammar mistakes that you can read it 3 times and not see.
Yeah. Yep.
And then I apparently, well, I think I write like I talk, but which is not always good. But what is the thing that squawks at me all the time? I talk passively. I type. I speak passively. I still have yet to figure out what that is, but
actually, it's funny you mentioned that because Yoast will kind of grade you on that. But if it gives you links, you can click over, and in less than 10 minutes, you can learn the different.
Learn it, right. But
yeah.
I can't seem to break the habit. But
yeah, no, but that's okay because it took me a while to break it until I had to spend so much time clicking over onto Yoast to learn how to change and you can highlight the specific things that it's seeing that are written in passive language. And so you just go through that and you do it enough times and it starts to sink in, right? And now when I write something, and this was not true 2 years ago even, it's very common now for me to get a green light from Yoast right off the bat. Because I've learned how to not write in passive language because I've had to correct that so many times. You know, that's the point. So it's like anything else. You know, I once looked up the word practice because I was curious what the actual definition was. And, you know, as with many words, there are several, but the one that struck out at me was the definition that said it means to do something over and over and over again. And so when you think of an expression like practice makes perfect, it makes total sense. Is if I keep doing something over and over and over again, I'm going to get closer and closer to perfect at it. I may never get perfect. I don't need to. I just need to get better. And so that's the conversation I'm having more and more now with my friends in the accounting industry, especially, who tell me, oh, I'm not a writer. I don't like to write.
No.
So I got into accounting. And I'm like, well, just do it. Because here's the thing. Because people will say, well, I'm not good at it, so I'm not going to enjoy doing it. You may not be good at writing itself, but you're good at your craft. And you love to talk about your craft. And writing about your craft is just another way of talking about it. And again, as your writing improves and you love to write, you're going to love to write about the subject matter that you love, right? I guarantee you, if you just, let that barrier come down and cross over it and start doing some writing, I guarantee you'll fall in love with it as I have. I wasn't a writer when I started all this.
right. And these Grammarly and Yoast and all that, those support you and help you get over your fear, I think.
For sure, because you have that support. And most of us, I have a good friend, Vivian, who is actually in our Between Wall and Man group. She's a ghostwriter and a copywriter for a living. She'll be more than happy to look over anything you've written and help you clean it up if you're worried about putting it out there. So worst case scenario, you spend a little bit of money and have a professional look it over, but at least you wrote it. So it's your brainchild, right? That to me is much better than paying somebody else to write for you, because then it's not coming from your heart. It's coming from somebody else's mental interpretation of your heart and whatever. I'm not a fan of doing it that way. Anyway, let's talk about Airtable, because that's what we're here to talk about today. As you can see, I have an Airtable screen up. This is our Accounting Business Academy 97 and up. The log I keep of the calls.
See.
Sorry?
You're not up.
Oh, I forgot I turned my screen sharing off. Jeez. I need like an assistant to stand behind me.
Well, that's basically my only job.
That's your job, Craig? Okay, perfect.
Remind you to share your screen.
Perfect. So this is...
That's why you pay me the big bucks.
Exactly. So this is our log that I keep in Airtable, and I'm showing this to you because I want you to start to just get a very simplified sort of picture of what Airtable is and what it can do. Somebody described it in one of the Facebook groups yesterday when it's funny timing, because they were asking about this thing that Seth David had shown, and he's got these slick processes with it and blah, blah, blah. And it turns out they were talking about Airtable. They had no idea that I was doing this today. And so I jumped in there. I said, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be teaching Airtable tomorrow morning and so on. And the way somebody else had chimed in and described it, I think it was Melanie Schroeder who kind of called out and said, that sounds like, Seth's Airtable thing. And the way she described it is like it's, and it was pretty accurate. It's like a spreadsheet meets Microsoft Access meets project management, all on steroids, right? On the surface, it's simple looking. It's a grid. It looks like a spreadsheet quite a bit, but it's got some really powerful tools and functions and things that it can do. And I was recently asked by somebody to build a database for him where he had a kind of unique inventory situation in that he was, he kind of leases out inventory for extended periods of time. So he'll put equipment on site at one of his clients. It could be 6 months before they get it back. And he needs to track that. So he needs to track all the different serial numbers for each piece of equipment, right? And within a given type of equipment, they may have 20 in stock, but they may have 10 leased out, and they need to know that they have 10 more available to lease out to others, right? And so he wanted me to build a system in Airtable for him to track that. And I sketched it out. And what I'm going to show you today is kind of what I sketched out for him, because it turned into some really cool stuff I can do. Of course, I quoted him $3,000 to complete the build out for him. And I haven't heard back from him. So I'm guessing that was too much money for him. But I've become more and more of the mindset that, you know what? It took me a lot of time and expertise to figure out how to do this stuff. And if I'm going to take the time to do it, I want to get paid for it. So I wasn't about to sort of balk on that price.
So Seth, I just want to say that Sarah's working on a project right now, your gallery, Sarah, that this might really work with.
My gallery? Oh, Sarah Laidlaw.
I am here.
Okay. So
artists track all their own inventory.
Right.
And their art or their jewelry is all over the city, or it could be at their home, it could be at another gallery, it could be at my gallery. So
got it. So hopefully you all caught the video that I put up and reminded you about a couple times this week, where I showed you how to get this far with it. And all we did was create the basic tables that I want to kind of build out today, right? So, and this is where I mentioned a couple times, we're also going to have some CRM-like functionality built into that, because we're going to have a table for customers and another table for projects. And I'm going to go through this and start explaining how this works and how I build it all out. And then, of course, assets checked in and out is where we're going to track, what we have on hand versus what's been leased out to somebody. And of course, you can, Sarah, in your example, you can add columns ad infinitum to this to track any piece of information about it that you want, such as a list of galleries, right? So for something like that, I'd probably have another tab in here which would be just the galleries, right? It would be a list of all the galleries. And the idea here is you want to create a separate list or table for anything that you want to track, like customers. And it might be tempting to put customers and projects in the same table. Here's why you don't. Because if I do that, now I've got to repeat a customer every time I have another project for that customer. The point is to separate those things because then you can link them. And that way a customer only ever appears once in the customer list and a project only ever appears once in the project list, right? That's how you want to think about how to construct a database like this, right? The first column in particular in your table should be a unique item that never gets repeated, right? It is the thing that we're describing in the rest of that table. So for the customer, what would we want? We'd probably want some contact information. I already went ahead in the video and I built this status column, right? Because as this list grows, and hopefully it will grow very large, and customers go inactive, we want to kind of, filter them out of the list so that we are only working with the ones that are active, but we never want to delete a record, right? We always want to have that record of who was a customer at some time. Okay. Any questions so far? So far, I think that's all probably pretty simple. Okay, so let's build out the customer table to start with. And I'm still sharing my screen, right, Greg?
Yes, sir.
All right. So the status column, by the way, really simple. If you double click the column itself, the header, it gets you into the setup of that column, right? And so notice the type of column I chose to set this up as is called single select, right? 2 choices, either active or inactive. And you and then you can color code the choices just to make it more visual, right? Really, really easy. You just click on this little arrow and choose the color. I have a big color palette because I have the paid version of Airtable. If you're on the free version, you have colors, but they're more limited and not as pretty. So the next thing I want after the status is probably, I'm going to just delete these 2 columns for now. We're probably going to bring them back, but I just kind of want them out of the way. Okay, and now I'm going to hit this plus sign because the next column I want is probably street address for the customer's address. And this is another reason for not duplicating the customer and the project in the same table, because the project may have a different address. This way I can keep track of that separately. And like I said, you're going to see how we link them in a few minutes. All right, this is going to be address 2 for like a suite number or something along those lines. Then we're going to have city, and all these are just single line text, right? I don't need anything fancy. The next one, state, I could do a drop down. It's not hard to quickly create a drop down for something like this. But you know what I find as somebody who fills out forms sometimes? It's actually a lot easier to just type my state in than to have to scroll through the list. Although having the drop down would also prevent from different variations. Like I have a list going now from a form where some people will put the initials and other people will spell the state out, right? And, anyway, so there's arguments both ways for,
Will it quick fill, like you start to do G, will Georgia pop up?
Yeah, all these will do that. Absolutely,
Okay.
if you do the drop down. So if you want to do the drop down, and by the way, you can quick fill the type of field in this drop down. So if I know I'm looking for a drop down, I type DRO. Actually, it would be single select, right? And then I want to add in all the states. So, and if you want a quick list of the states, you can just Google it and get it into Excel pretty quickly. Unfortunately, you can't copy and paste it. I don't think. Let's try it real quick. I'm pretty sure I tried this and it didn't work, but let's just do a quick sample. So let's just do New York. Oops, that didn't work. Come on, Google, wake up. New York, California, New Jersey, right? Let's say I just want to paste 3 choices in there. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised here. Yeah, see, if I paste it in, it puts them all in the same thing. So unfortunately, you will have to type it, 50 times for all the states. So it's worth it maybe taking the time to do it. Next thing we're going to do is the zip. Okay, and then we're going to do a few more here. Let's do the phone number. Now for phone, we do have a special field for phone numbers. Okay, and by the way, if you want to learn what you have fields for, just click the plus sign and scroll the list and learn. That's how I learned. All right, we're going to see the roll-up today, which is a really freaking cool feature. So what's after the phone? Email, right? And we have a field for that. That's one of the things I really like about Airtable and forms. It has a lot of field types for contact information that you don't have in other form building type tools. Normally your email would just be your basic text field. All right, now let's go ahead and add back notes and attachments, right? So, because a lot of times we want to keep notes about a customer. And a note is going to be long text. That's what we do for the notes, for the longer notes. And what's cool is right off the bat, because I chose long text as opposed to single line, when I'm in that field, notice it gives me this little expand cell dialog launcher. You click that and you get like a little notepad that you can write in, and then of course when you're done you close it. Another thing right away that I want you to see, and let me just add the attachments. And this one I believe is called attachment. Okay, the other thing, let's get rid of these 2 blank rows for now, is all the way back to the left of the field, right? Back to the first column, all the way to the left, you'll see this is a way to expand the entire record, right? This whole row is the record. Every column is a field. So when I click this, it gets me into more of a linear view of the whole record. So sometimes I'll find it's easier if I'm kind of like taking in a new customer or whatever. Of course, a lot of times we're going to set up something like Zapier to populate something like this automatically, but that's another video for another day and one I've already done. But anyway, this is a really nice way to get kind of get focused on this one record and fill it out when you need or want to. All right, so let me fill this out real quick so we have some data to play with. Right, I'm number 102 in Burbank, California. Okay. And because I've formatted as a phone, I don't have to put any characters in. I can just type the string of numbers, right? All right, notes, blah, blah, blah. Hitting the tab key, of course, advances you to another field. And attachments, I think you all know how to attach something somewhere. I don't think I need to show you that. So now we have the customer template kind of built out, right? I can add customers to this all day long. And by the way, if you want to create a form from here, really ridiculously easy to do. I click this view dialog. This is called the grid view. So I might want to name this and just call it customer list, right? So I just double click that because now you can create multiple views. I can duplicate this view. When I have a lot of customers, I'll probably duplicate this view and create a version that's called active customers, right? And it'll be filtered for only the ones that are marked active here, right? And that's really easy to create filters. It's right here. But this way I can save the view so I can just flip views instead of having to go back and redo the active filter every time I want to see that. But if I want to create a form, I click the little drop down next to the view, and right over here, I click on form. And now that I've got all the fields built out, Airtable pretty much creates the form for me. I just have to decide if there's anything I want to exclude. And then you want to probably, spruce it up, put a cover image, add a logo, probably add a description, and then go through and decide which ones are required versus which ones aren't, right? Like status, I probably wouldn't have somebody filling out in a form. So I just drag this over here to the left so that it's not included in the form that the end user who's coming to fill out the form can see. They're obviously going to get thrown if they have to decide what their own status is, right? Projects, I'll explain why this is here in a minute, but for now we can certainly exclude this. Everything else you probably wouldn't want notes in the form because that's really for you to do. Attachments you might leave in. There might be a lot of use cases where you'd want your customer to upload some kind of an attachment, maybe a signed agreement, who knows. Okay, back to the customer list. So the form dialog is really easy to work with. Obviously, I could probably do a whole hour on just kind of building out forms and building out workflows around that, but that's not today's subject. So why did projects show up in the form? Notice I have a hidden field here in the form of projects. Why is that? Because in the projects tab that I've already built out, I've already linked a record in projects called Project X to the customer Nerd Enterprises, right? When you link a field from one table to another, if I'm doing it from this table, which I did, it will stick this project or this column, so to speak, over into this table. In other words, when something's linked, it has to show up both places, right? So as soon as I linked in the projects table, I linked a project to a customer. In the customers tab, it created a column to show the project that this customer was linked to, right? Now in this case, it needs to allow linking to multiple records because I might have more than one project for the same customer, but I'm never going to have more than one customer for the same project. So on this side, it doesn't allow linking to multiple records. Okay, now how did we do this? Basically, when I double click this field, I can show you the type of field is called link to another record. So I'm going to delete this to show you how it's kind of built from scratch. So let's delete that field. Okay, which means we want to delete it from here. Notice this field, when I deleted the linked field, it just converted it to a basic text field, right? So we're going to delete this one here. Now if I go back to projects, right, because I've built out the customers table, I've got at least one customer all filled out. Now I want to set up the first project, which is going to be project X. So let's, I can actually right click here and do insert left since because I want it kind of before the notes field. And we'll call this customer. And here's where we're going to choose link to another record. It's right there at the top because it's one of the most frequent things you're going to want to do. This is kind of the very basis of Airtable's functionality, is the way it makes it so easy to link things from one place to another. That's what a database is. It's a bunch of tables that are linked back and forth based on some key piece of data, right? So here, the key piece of data that links a project to a customer is the customer. So we're going to say link to another record, and it gives us the list of all the other tables that it sees here. So we can decide where we want to link from. So I'm going to choose link to customers, and here I'm going to turn off allow linking to multiple records because, again, on this side, I would only ever want one customer linked to a single project. And so what it does is it just creates the field now, and it's waiting for me to tell it, okay, which customer do we want to link this to? Let me delete these extra records. And what's cool is the functionality here is really nice. If I know I'm linking this to Nerd Enterprises, I can just start typing Nerd, and boom, it comes up. It gives me a drop-down that's pulling from that customer table. And see how nice it is? It even gives me a bit of a preview of the information that I have about that customer, right? Namely the status and the street. It gives you the first like 4 fields that you have in the table. So if you want different stuff to show up here when you're doing this, you can just reorder these fields. How do you reorder these fields? If you go into hide fields, you can actually click and drag and easily reorder the fields and in the order in which they appear as columns. So that's an easy way. Of course, the other way is you can just click and drag the column right or left from within the table. So you can do that to kind of control what shows up when I'm trying to select. Now notice what I did here with Nerd Enterprises already selected. If I click on it, it drills back into the customer record. So again, really slick functionality with Airtable because while I'm working in the projects table, I can get into the customer record and update the customer's notes. Sent out the proposal. Right, so you see how this gets to be a little CRM-like, and you could have templates in Airtable for using Airtable as a CRM. Okay, let me see if we've got any questions so far. Larry says, would it not be handy to have a project type template to use on multiple customers? Sure. You can have a table for different project types. That's the beauty of this, is you can create a table for any piece of information you'd want to track and then link somewhere else. You could have customer types, right? If you deal with different kinds of customers, commercial versus residential, something like that. You can have a table for customer type. You can list those too, and then in the customer database, you add a column for that and link to it so each customer can be assigned what type of customer they are. And then what's cool about that is then you can actually group it by customer type, right? And when we get into the groupings, it gets pretty slick. Okay, so next after projects and customers, we have asset types, right? So here I'm just going to play around a little, and I'm just going to create this one column called asset type. And let's just call it, in the case that I was talking about with the client who may come back and hire me at some point. There's different kinds of equipment. So let's just call it equipment, since I don't really have a whole lot of context for this. Actually, let's call it hammers, right? Maybe we're leasing hammers out to construction companies. I don't know. That I'm just making up, right? But I want to give it a good example of what type of asset, how you might use the asset types here. Okay, so that's pretty simple and straightforward. It's just a list, and the only reason for doing this, I want to create at least one more asset type. So let's call this 2x4 planks or something. Okay, and then I'll delete the extra record here. Now we get into the real deal. Now each individual asset, right, is going to have a serial or a SKU number. So that's going to be the unique item here, right? Because no matter how many hammers I have, each hammer has to have its own serial or SKU number, right? So now we're going to link the asset types over here. I'm going to insert left, same exact process, asset type. And let's go to link to another record. And we want asset types or names. No multiple. Save. So let's just call this one, I'm going to do something very original here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and here we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Okay, they're both going to be hammers. Notice instead of typing, I can also just click, and I've got a drop down, and I can use the search, right? So if I start typing hammers, of course, it's going to filter it, just like we're used to in most database applications. Let's do also 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, just so we have something in a different asset type. 2x4 planks, right? Now there's going to be a bunch more stuff we need here in the asset, in the serial numbers, right? And especially, remember the context that I gave around which I was building this. I want to be able to track, what I have, what's leased out, what's in or out of stock. So the first thing I need, I'm going to insert left. Actually, I'm going to delete these fields because it's just easier when I know I've got a lot of columns to build out to be able to keep hitting the plus sign without having those two fields in my way. All right, so the next thing we need is the number of quantity owned. Right, and this we can do as a number. And when you assign the type number, you can choose, in this case, it's an integer. I can't own a part of a hammer, right? No need to allow negative numbers, and we can have a default. I'll click Save. So let's say in this case I've got, well, this is going to be 1 each, right? Because I can only own 1 of a single serial number, but you'll see where this comes in, because when we group it by asset type, it's going to be able to total those up and show me that I've got 2 hammers. That's the point. Okay, and then we'll say I own 1 of these. Next column is going to be quantity out, which I'll leave alone for now because we have to go back and configure that. Then we want quantity in stock, which of course is the difference, right? It's the quantity owned minus the quantity out. So here we're going to write a formula. So over here, we go formula, and very simple math, equals, actually you don't even need the equals because it knows you're writing a formula. So I can say number or quantity owned minus quantity out and save, right? We've got nothing in quantity out, so everything's 1, right? Everything we own is in stock right now. Okay, and that's all we need. So before we can configure this column, I want to make sure we've got this one set up because this is where we track what's been checked in or out. Okay, so here we're just going to do for this key, because this is going to be a record. Every time something gets checked out, it goes in here as something being checked out. Every time something gets checked back in, it goes, comes back through here. So this is like a transaction register for when we've checked an asset in or out, right? So this, we're going to actually just call it number, and we can even call it like transaction number. And over here, we're going to do auto number, because I just want each different transaction to have its own record, right? So I can look it up. It's like assigning a transaction number every time something like this happens, right? Okay, so here we're going to do a bunch of things that we've already seen in order to build this out, but let me stop for a minute here and just see if we have any questions. Nothing on Facebook. Anything in our chat? Guess not. All right. Hopefully, so can everybody at least kind of chime in and confirm this is all making sense?
It's good.
All right. Who said that?
Katrina,
Thank you.
you bet.
All right. I'm getting my second cup of coffee going here. All right. Just want to make sure I'm not totally losing people, but I think it's all pretty straightforward so far. Okay. So we're going to build out a few linked fields, right? So the first thing I need is the serial number, because when the driver shows up at the site and the customer is going to check out some inventory, then we need to know exactly which item is being checked out. I just saw the chat go up there. Tammy says you can't upload from Excel, but you can download. You can actually, I think, import an Excel sheet into this. You can certainly copy and paste one to get the data laid out, and then you'll just configure your columns. So one way or the other, it's pretty easy to get stuff from a spreadsheet into Airtable. All right, so here we want the serial number because they're going to have to pick which serial number is out because we can only have one of a particular serial number, and so that one item can only be in or out, right? So we need the serial number, and that's going to be a link to another record. We're going to get that from the asset serial or SKU numbers, and again, no multiples there. Okay, then we have the asset type or name. Now watch this trick. So let me bring in a serial number. Let's just say that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you see how nice that is? Because the driver can see a list of serial numbers, and it even shows whether it's in or out, right? So he can see, and obviously he'd be looking physically at the hammer at the serial number to make sure he's picking the right one. Now, once he picks this, no need for him to choose this. He might get that wrong. So this field is going to be a lookup. Not there. Hold on. Pay attention, Seth. Here in the field types, we have a lookup field. And so we're going to look up on the serial number. And when we find it, the serial number is the, we're going to look up in this table. When we find a match, we want the asset type. That's what we're looking up. So boom. So we picked serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It knows that's hammers. If I pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, it's going to know that's planks. Okay, and real quick before we go on, where you can see this starts to get pretty cool is if we now group it by asset type or name. Look what it does. Right, so this will be a really quick way I can drill around and pivot around on what we have sort of in stock, what we have out of stock, and so on. I'll remove the grouping. Okay, next field is the quantity checked in or out, right? So actually we'll just say checking in or out is going to be a negative, right? And this is also going to be a number. And it's definitely going to be an integer, and we definitely do need to allow negative numbers, right? Because when we check it out, it needs to be a -1. When we check it back in, it's a +1. Okay, so now we're going to say -1 to check this one out, -1 here to check this one out, and now we can go back and configure our other field here where it's going to figure out what's out of stock to then calculate what's in stock. Okay, now because I linked from the assets checked in or out table, this shows up, so we're just going to hide that. I don't need that field to show here, right? So I went into the hide fields and you just turn it off. It's an on-off switch. This is where I really want people to pay attention. So let me stop again, just make sure there's no more questions here, because this is the part that's really cool, but you need to be paying attention. So Sarah asked in the chat, Can you cut and paste or upload lists for dropdowns? No, that's what I showed you earlier. I was trying to paste the states in for the dropdown, and it didn't work. Here's what you could do, though. I take that back because I did play around with this. Let me open up another Airtable base. I want to show you actually a cool way that you could do this because Airtable does get really smart this way. Let me just, real quick, it's worth doing this because I did show you earlier and say that you can't do it, but it just occurred to me there is a way to do it and get it done quickly. So let me just create a real quick blank database, state list. Let's come in here, okay, and let's say we're just going to use this first field for the state. Here's how you do it. Let's search Google for, well, let's just use this example just to save time. We'll get a few more in here just for sort of context. Washington, Massachusetts, Florida, whatever. So here's the way I would do it, actually. You have to make sure your list is complete or substantially complete before you copy and paste anything. Because now I can take, let's just pretend this was the complete list of states in our country. I can take this, and while this is still a text-based field, I can paste that in. It's going to confirm that I need to add the rows to accommodate the extra ones, right? But watch what Airtable will do now. If I turn this into a drop-down, it will put these choices in, and it obviously won't duplicate them. So if I go here, and now I say make this into a single select. Oh, hold on. I can't do that with the primary field. So let's go into a new field here. Forgot about that. States. Paste that here. Turn this into a single select. And notice what it does. It right away just brings them in. I'll click Save. It confirms that I want to convert it. Yes. So now it converted it. And it just automatically assigns colors. And now watch this. If I double click it again, I can click Alphabetize and save that. So that's the quick way. If you want to get a state list dropdown, get them set up in a spreadsheet, paste them into a text field other than the first column. That first column is the primary key field, so it's limited in terms of how you can set that up and what you can let it do. But any other column is fair game. You paste them in as text and then convert it to a single select dropdown, and it will do the conversion for you, and then you can alphabetize it. Okay, now, here's the really, really cool part. I promised you a little while ago I was going to show you this. We're going to do what's called a roll-up. Because I could have different transactions where this is checked out and in and out and in, and I need to add up all those ones and negative ones to get at whether or not the net of that is it in or out, right? So I'm going to double-click this, and we're going to change the type to what's called a roll-up. Okay, so now it needs to choose a field in this table. What do we want to roll up by? Okay, so we want to roll up by the serial or SKU number. I'm sorry. We want to roll up by what's in assets checked in or out. And then we want to do that by serial number, I think. Hold on. Let me check something. No, the quantity checked in or out, of course. So assets checked in or out, it's going to be looking by the serial number because that's the primary field that we're using here, right? I'll click Save. All right, it didn't like something. Oh, I needed to pick a formula. Duh. So now what do I do when it finds the matches, right, for assets checked in or out? I need to sum the values. Now I save it. And this now, I need to change the formula here because it's not this minus this. The way I'm setting this up, this actually needs to be a sum. So I just changed this to a plus, right? Okay, so now we own one. There's one checked out, so the quantity in stock is 0. Okay, let me do that again because I know I kind of screwed it up for a second. So insert left. Quantity out. All right, this is going to be a roll up. So rolling it up again, we want to look at the asset type. No, assets checked in or out. I keep doing that. We want to look at assets checked in or out. And then we want to do it on the quantity in or out. And then here we need a sum, right? We want to add it up. We want to add up all the negative ones and positive ones to get at what is the net effect of what's checked in or out. Okay, so what this is doing is it's looking at the serial or SKU number, right? Because that's the thing that can't be duplicated. That's in the primary field in our column. So it's always looking up when you do something like this. It's always looking by what's in the leftmost column in the table that you're in. So it's basically in this first row going to be looking for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be looking for it in assets checked in or out, right? It's just like a sum if in Excel. So it's looking for the serial number here. It's looking for it in assets checked in or out. It's looking up and down the whole list. And then it's going to do a sum on whatever's in the checking in or out column, which is a quantity. Obviously, it has to be a quantity. And so then the type of function, because you can do an average, you can do anything. So this rollup is a really, unlike a sum if, this is much more powerful because I can do the same concept as a sum if, but I can do it with any function. I can do it with a sum. I can do it with an average. I can probably do it with a standard deviation if I wanted to. So when I click save now, and then we're going to fix the formula here, right? The formula here is going to be the number of quantity owned plus the quantity out. Because when the quantity out is negative, that means we want to deduct it from what we've owned, right? So this works. Now let's go, so you can see it works. This one's checked out, this one is not, so we still have it in stock. This one is checked out, so we have none of them, right? Let's go back here and let's add a couple more of each asset type so you can start seeing how this really comes together. So I don't need the asset type here, actually. I need it in the asset or serial or SKU numbers. Here we're going to hide this last field because we don't need this to show up here. It's just because of the linking. Over here, so this is really our true inventory list here, right? This is where we're actually tracking all of our inventory. So I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 is going to be a hammer, right? So I can just type a hammer to add another item into the inventory list. Okay, and we own 1. Right, in this case, we're tracking each individual item by serial or SKU number. That's the point of this. You don't have to do it this way. If you just want to track how many hammers you have, fine. But this is a use case where we need to track each individual serial number, and that's where Airtable gets beautiful because you could never do this in QuickBooks or even any inventory management system like Deer or SOS. It would be way too much to track individual serial numbers, right? But Airtable handles this beautifully. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, and let's do 2x4s. I can just type my 2 and it should find it. Okay, we'll have one more of these, and then let's do 1, 2, 4, 5, 8. I got to change my numbers up. I was running out of room there. Another 2x4. All right, so now I have some stock. I have 3 of each. Let's go back here to assets checked in or out. Okay, so that's that. And now all these other ones are still in stock. So now is where the grouping. Greg, do you have a question or are you saying goodbye?
Saying goodbye to Dennis.
Oh, bye, Dennis. So now's where the grouping gets really handy because now I'm going to group by asset type. And boom, just like that, in a click, I can see I have a bird's eye view. Notice it has a count of 3. So I have 3 of these. There are 3. The sum of the quantity out is -1. 1 of these are out. My total in stock is 2. Right? And notice the groupings have these little arrows. Whenever you're playing in an app, one of the reasons I'm able to learn so much about these apps is I don't ignore any little detail. When I see an arrow like this, I actually, like a kid in one of those touch science museums, I'm like, oh, what does that do? Oh, cool. That zips the whole thing up. What if I right-click it? Check that out. I can just collapse everything in a click. And now I can see by each asset type the total quantity in stock. Right? And then I can right-click it again and choose Expand All. Okay? So in essence, this is the program. Now, if I wanted to, I could do all kinds of other things. I can show which customer has this particular serial number, right? All I have to do is do a lookup. Okay, that's going to get a little tricky because over time, over here, there's going to be, here I would probably definitely want to link to the customer. I need to know which customer checked this out, right? And which customer checked it back in. So I can add that here. Link to another record, customers, done. And I can do the same for the project. Actually, better yet, I can do the project, and then I can have it look up the customer based on the project. The less a user has to do, the better. So link to another record, the project. Let's move the project over. And then the customer, we're going to change this and just do a lookup. Right, so I'm looking up the project, and I want to bring up the customer. And click Save. So now when I choose the project, I can choose Project X, which was the one project I'd set up for Nerd Enterprises. See, look how cool that is. As I pull up the projects, I can see which customer it's assigned to already. And once I choose that, then the lookup does its magic, and it lets me know. So now I could group this by customer or project to see ultimately how it adds up or down. Because if I end up, and here's the next thing we want to do. Let's say I screw up here. And so let's say I check out another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? It should be obvious enough, right? Because I should be seeing here, oh, this one's out of stock. This can't be the right serial number. But let's say I'm not paying attention. I ignore that. Okay, and I check it out. Everything's Project X right now because that's all we have. But look what happens here. Where's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? See, so now I have a quantity in stock of -1. I want to flag for that. I want to make sure that's obvious when something like that happens. When I have a problem, I want to know about it immediately. I want to make sure I can rectify it, right? Here's how you do that. We're going to go to color, and we're going to set a condition. Okay, and the condition is, and I hate that you can't move this out of the way because I forget the exact name. So we want to set a condition that when the quantity in stock is less than 0, it gives it a nice bright red color or something. So first let's set the color to be like a nice bright red or pink or whatever that is. The condition is based on the quantity in stock. The function is less than 0. Notice already in the background, it lights that one up for me. Boom. Okay. We can also set a filter for something like that. And so watch this. I told you I would do something like this. So let's get rid of my grid view for a second. We'll get rid of the grouping. So we're back to a grid. I meant get rid of my group view. So now I want to also create like a report that I can kind of run at any time to see if I have any problems. So here we're going to say duplicate view. And we're going to call this problems, right? Whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to set a filter for where the quantity in stock is less than 1. I mean less than 1. I don't know what's wrong with my brain today. Less than 0. Okay, and so now it's like a report. And here's my grid view. Let's create another duplicate because now that it's built out, we can start essentially creating reports on it. I'm going to duplicate this view again. And this one we're going to call inventory by asset type. Okay, and this one we're going to group by asset type. So now I have my reports. When I'm just ready to work, I go to the grid view. When I want to see the inventory by asset, I click on this view. If I want to check if there are any problems, I can do that here, but just the same in either of the other views, I'm going to see the red right? So one way or another, I've given myself as many opportunities as I can. The only thing I can't do is have it trigger some kind of a pop-up or notification that says, hey, we've got a problem. Airtable on the paid version has something called blocks. I imagine if I played around in there a bit, I might find something that might do that, but I haven't gotten that far with it yet. So now, of course, I can see this and see, all right, well, let's see where the problem is. Let's go to assets checked in or out, and let's group this one by serial number. Because now I can see very quickly, oh, here's my problem. Serial number 12345 has been checked out twice. It never got checked back in. Now, I might have some work to do from there to figure out, you know, well, I could see clearly here which project it was checked out for. Obviously, normally it wouldn't be checked out for the same project twice, not likely anyway. The other thing that would be really handy in a table like this, can anybody guess what I'm thinking of? Wouldn't you want to know the date something was checked out or in? So we should probably add a date column in here.
Well, I wonder if that also gets to Sarah's question about, what did she say? Does it then track the turn in and then out for a new customer?
Well, that should, because, yeah, I can group this by customer, right? So if I group by customer, boom, it shows here. In this case, it's all one customer. So it shows all Nerd Enterprises, Inc. and all checking out, right? So let's say we need to add a record here for checking it back in. And let's
What I read into her question, though, was like an audit trail, audit log sort of thing, where it'll say, it'll be timestamped that at 8:58 on 2/22, Seth checked out item number 12345.
Yes, so transaction date, let's call it. Okay, and there are system, I think if we type system, no, or auto something, where is it? Auto number. No, there's one where it will automatically stamp the date created.
Once it created time?
That's the one, thank you. So we can do different date formats, right? Like they call this friendly, where it actually spells out the month, right? Or US. What drives me crazy is they don't give you the option I usually do in Excel, where it's a double-digit month, just so that things line up better. But yes, so, and then you can include the time field or choose not to, and then save. So this will show you exactly when the transaction took place. This is not something you can change. It will just, it's based on when this record is created. Only potential flaw here is if the record wasn't created, you know, this is built around the premise in this particular use case that I was asked to set it up for, where the driver is on site with the customer, and he wanted the driver to be able to pull this up on his iPad and kind of, you know, fill it out so that he's acknowledging that they're checking out a particular serial number and giving it to this particular customer, right? And then the next thing that I don't have time to show you today that I'm building out in this, again, why I'm asking for $3,000 for it, is I've learned now how to create a template in Google Docs. So it will take information about the customer and project, populate a Google Docs template. Zapier will do that. So Zapier, once the record is created, and once I would put a checkbox in here so the driver can confirm, okay, I'm done entering everything. As soon as he hits that checkbox, Zapier comes in, grabs the data, populates the template, emails it right back to the driver in a form where the driver can have the customer sign and acknowledge that he's received the asset.
So Seth, stop for a moment and repeat that. What you're saying is the actual data entry for this, the in and out of inventory, is the Google Sheets? Or the Google Forms?
No, the data entry is happening here in Airtable.
How do you get things in and out? How does it populate in and out?
So the driver's going to get a form that he's going to fill out right off of.
That was my question.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to create a form off of this table that when the driver is on site with the client, he's going to fill out. He's going to fill out the project, the customer, and it will automatically stamp the date. And then, again, once he checks off a checkbox that I would add to this, that acknowledging that he's filled out all the information, Zapier will come in, grab this data, drop it into a Google Docs template, and email him. The template is almost like a little contract that will email to the driver, because I said why not send it to the customer, have them print it out and sign it, or we can go through DocuSign. And he's like, I don't want to trust the customer to do anything. I know my driver knows he can't leave the site without having that document signed. So as soon as he checks a checkbox off, Zapier comes in, populates the Google Docs template, emails it to him, and with a little light pen or whatever on his iPad, he can have the customer sign off acknowledging that they've received this exact asset with this exact serial number.
That Google Doc is what makes it really nice.
Yeah, the Google Doc template. And I was playing in Zapier, and I learned how to do a Google Docs template in Zapier. I still have some work to do on it. Some of the fields weren't translating exactly right. Especially fields that I noticed that were pulling from like a formula. So I have to perfect it a little bit. But again, that's why I wanted $3,000 for this project, because it takes a lot of expertise to build something like this. And because it's completely automated. Once it's done, it's handed to him, and his drivers don't have to know computers. They just have to know how to fill out a form on an iPad and then check a checkbox, and boom, they get an email within a few seconds. Right? And go to the customer, say, here, customer, sign this. We've just loaded it off our truck and onto your site. And now we have all everything we need to track. And this transaction date column will give us the timestamp. Again, if we wanted to, we could include the time field so we know exactly what time it is that the driver created this record.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's pretty freaking slick. So guess what my next course is going to be on?
Guess what Sarah is going to be doing the rest of the day?
I want to hear from Sarah. I want Sarah to unmute. I want to hear if Sarah's like blown away or what. Oh, and if you're going to sign up for Airtable, please give me the opportunity to give you my affiliate link. Airtable actually just gives me credit against my bill whenever I refer somebody.
I have a couple questions that you might know.
What? Go ahead. Yeah, now we can.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my microphone was way over. What are the sharing capabilities? Could I have a database for each artist and share just with that artist?
Yes, you could build it out that way. You could either, it's a good question. So let me answer the question at large. So first, I can share the entire base, right?
Okay.
If I wanted to share the whole base with my client, no problem, I can do that. Once you've got this, look, I can duplicate this whole base. So once you've built it for one, you can just duplicate the base, right? And so have a different one for each of your artist clients that have art at different galleries, right?
Right.
So that's easy enough to do. You're definitely going to need the paid version, especially if you want to have them collaborating with you on it.
Because I'd want to see all the databases.
Right.
But what I want to do is a value add that if you are a client of my gallery, I will give you this database. You keep track of your own database. But somehow I'll be able to keep track of what's in my gallery.
So in order for them to be able to make changes in your base, they need to be a paid collaborator. That's one of the downsides. Airtable starts to get expensive because of that.
Every artist would have to have their own paid.
They would have to pay. I would just bill it to the artist. It's a very definite, good value add. It'll cost you $20 per user. Heck, charge them $50 a month. Say, I'm going to give you this really cool database to keep track of your own stuff.
I need 100% participation, or it's not going to work.
Yeah. The other thing to be aware of is it's unlike Smartsheet, this can't be easily linked between different bases.
Because I was thinking about doing Smartsheets for them.
Yeah. If you need to link between different databases, here these bases are set up to link beautifully within the one database, right?
But I can't share just one section of a database. Yeah.
You can. So you can share, not only can you can share one view. So one option was to share the database at large, but I can also, while I'm in this one particular view, here's another share button. So I can share just this view.
All right. And it's just a view only thing.
Right. So it would be just this view. If I have, where did we create multiple views? It was here, right? So this sharing would be for this particular view, but not for this one. So if I go share this view, let's just test that before I tell you that for sure. So here it gives me the sharing link. By clicking through here, I've effectively turned it on, right? Allow viewers to copy data out of this view, show all fields. So there's some choices about what they're getting access to. Here's the share link, right? Notice now this share button is lit up. It kind of lets me know, hey, this is shared. Let's switch views and see if it applies. So no. So each view has its own separate sharing. So you can create a database, you can create a table, you can carve out a specific view and just share that view. But
Share
again,
the view and then link it to a Google Doc that they fill out to change it.
you could, and you can even give them a Google Doc that they can fill out and use Zapier to dump that whatever they filled out into here, right? Keep in mind, as soon as you invite them in as a collaborator, I don't believe there's a way to restrict the collaborator's access. I think once they're a collaborator, they have access to the whole thing. I could be wrong about that. Let's check that for a second. Let's say I'm sharing the whole page.
But if they're doing a Google Doc or a Google form,
no, then they don't need to be in here at all. But the problem with that approach is they can't change anything. They can only add to it, right? So over here, notice in this, I have Erica's kind of in this whole workspace with me, so anything I create is shared with her. So I can change. There's different levels. Notice she's a creator, I'm an owner. So there are different levels, but I don't know that when you invite a workspace collaborator in or even a collaborator into a base, I don't know that you could restrict the access to anything. I think
so. In your example, the driver would have to have his own.
In my example, the driver is not going to have access to anything. He's just going to fill out a form that's filled out off this particular table.
And that's changing records because he's increasing and decreasing.
No, he's adding a new transaction that's increasing and decreasing.
Right, the transaction
count of what's in or out. Okay. Yeah.
Oh. How about images? Is there anything cool with
the attachments it handles? So let me show you a different example of something, and then I got to run. But watch what I do with my content now. I'm going to show you something really cool because it's actually I'm due to do this. So I have a Zap in Zapier that says anytime I publish something new on the Nerd Enterprises website, add that record here. And so what it's going to do is it's going to add the title, okay? And then it's going to, where's that short link? The Zap also automatically uses Bitly to shorten the URL of that post. It puts in the full URL, and it adds that record here. Okay, so it does a lot of the work for me the minute I've published something. In fact, this one just came in minutes ago because I had a post scheduled to go off at 9 a.m. It's now 9:08, so this is perfect timing for this. So my Zap, within the last 8 minutes, just added this new record, Distributions in QuickBooks Online Explained. Okay, the headline copy I purposely have different from the title because I may want to change the copy for what's going to go out on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. But for now, I'll just copy and paste it over. I'll use the title as the headline copy. Here I can add hashtags, so I'm just going to copy because clearly I've got a series I've done here in the form of 3 posts. I want to mention Intuit Accountants and Allison Ball every time this goes out there. That's something Allison told me I can do. You can't, so don't do it unless you have her permission. I don't want her yelling at me for encouraging people to flood her Twitter feed. Over here, I indicate which site or property it's published on because I published in the past on Fundira, and sometimes I publish on Firm of the Future, so I like to know exactly where that post is coming from. So here's your question specifically, Sarah. So now it wants to know about the header image. I'm using the same header image for distributions and contributions in this case. So you can put the images, they store beautifully in here. I'm going to copy and paste that down because I actually want to use the exact same image for contributions or distributions. Okay, one caveat. If you're going to use this the way I'm using this now, which is to share it through, basically Zapier is going to take this. I'm going to show you my process in a second, where Zapier is going to take this and a bunch of other posts and push it into Buffer so that Buffer just puts them out on a schedule. So in about 2 seconds, I can schedule 100 posts, and I'm going to show you how. The only caveat, and I learned this the hard way, the file name for the image can't have any spaces. For whatever reason, if you try and push this image through and the file name has spaces, then Zapier won't let it through into Buffer. Okay, learn that the hard way. How to rename a whole bunch of pictures. And you can't just come in here and rename it. You have to download the picture, rename it, and then re-upload it. So you can save yourself a lot of time by learning the hard lesson from me. Okay, here I have a category, which is different potentially from the, well, certainly different from the site or property. And then I have the campaign. The campaigns can change because I might want to build a campaign around a set of posts. And so I use the campaigns to organize it that way because now I can filter or group it by campaign and quickly get those, just that campaign scheduled. All right, of course, I have the status here. It comes in published by default, but I might have something in here as a draft, or I also like to indicate if it's video only and I need an actual post, because I have a bunch of stuff on YouTube that was done a long time ago that's still evergreen, but it was on an old version of the blog that's long gone by now, right? So here's the real trick. So you see all these posts to Twitter, LinkedIn, post to Facebook page? I'm just going to take all these recent posts I've done, and notice I have my date created. Let's go back.
Didn't mean to squirrel you.
No, this is great. Let me just go to these recent posts. Go from last week's Zoom until today.
Mm-hmm.
Watch this. I'm going to hit enter here, and I'm going to copy and paste this check mark down.
Mm-hmm.
Done. Within the next 60 seconds, Zapier is going to take these and push them up to their respective networks and queue them
out.
buffer. Done. I just scheduled a whole bunch of content. I can go about my day, and the internet's going to go to work for me.
That is sweet, Seth.
Very sweet. Well, I had this dream that you could have an app where you click on the image field and take a picture. Instead of take a picture, name it.
Oh, I think you could
put it somewhere and then upload it and put it on that record.
I think you could. Hold on. If I go to add an attachment.
Can you take a picture?
Let me add it. Well, let's see what the options are. If I click here to add an attachment, I believe you can. Yeah, you can get your camera, take photo.
Let me see your screen. Or are you on your app?
Oh, sorry. No, hold on. I stopped sharing already. See, I didn't have Greg. Oh, no, Greg's still here.
I
so
here's how you wagon.
So here, when you're going to add an attachment, just click the plus sign. You get a bunch of options for where you can get a photo from, including
take a photo.
Take a photo.
That might be worth it right there.
Let's put that up on social media.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Airtable is awesome. It's like I said, it's not the cheapest in the world, but it's just awesome.
Okay.
So I wasn't on top of your screen sharing because I'm on my other screen over here trying to build out something on my own Airtable right here.
I see. All right, let me check in on the Facebook feed before I run. Can I post my referral link? I absolutely can. So here, one more thing. Just since we're at it, I'll show you another quick use case, something I use Airtable for. I am going to share my screen. So if I go over here, I've actually now created a folder of bookmarks to my Airtable databases that I use frequently. One of them I call my apps mosaic. And in here I have a log of every app that I use, and if there's an affiliate deal, that's in here too. Airtable should be here near the top. I also have high priority partners here, but Airtable's not there. Let's just go all apps, and let's sort by name. Oh, I have it by status and then by name, so let's pull status out of here and then apply it. And now there's Airtable, so I'll click my dialog launcher there, and there's my affiliate URL, which I will paste into the chat here and the feed on Facebook. There we go, going on to Facebook, going on to the chat. I think that is going to be my next course that I'm just going to build out, maybe even over the weekend, like all my Airtable use cases and how to build them. So, because that content creator course, what I did was cool. I literally ripped the lessons out of my 97 and Up program, but then we'd also done a series of these Zoom webinars on tips and tricks for content creators, video tips for content creators, and then Matthew Fulton was with us, and we did a whole thing on SEO. So I actually added those into a separate section in the course on Kajabi. So that course has hours and hours now of video training on how to write, how to edit the video, and also tips and tricks for what to do after you've produced that content, like how to kind of get it seen and so on and so forth. So I'm going to do something similar, I think, with Airtable. I'm just going to pull together, I'll probably record some new fresh stuff, and then I'll include things like today's Zoom in that course so that you'll be able to get access to that. And you'll see these courses, it's not subscription-based. It's just pay once and you have lifetime access to the course. I think that's better. I think people like that better rather than feeling like they got to worry about how long they're paying a subscription for. It's a little more money, but you pay once and that's it. You're in. right? That's kind of the premise I'm going on here with these. So anyway, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. Hope you had some fun. Sarah, are we going to use this for our artists or what? Did I convert you?
Jury's out, but I love wrapping my head around databases. So it might be
there's
cool.
so many things you can do with this, which probably accounts for why it does get expensive. I'm sure they're aware of that. You know, when you want a squirrel moment while you're diving into Airtable, just remember the blocks. You have to be paid to get access to that. But the blocks, there's some really cool stuff there. There's a maps one, because I was thinking of building this out for a realtor to show all their listings, and there's a maps block. It's a little technical to configure. You have to go into like your Google Apps and configure an app for the maps. It's not using Google Maps. It's a different maps application. But then you can put a block on the side of your base that's going to show a map of whatever address you've got there. You know, like I said, it's a little bit higher level in terms of the expertise you need. But if you go slow, there's nobody here that's not smart enough to figure it out, I guarantee you. You know, but just you have to go slow like I had to kind of figure it out and figure out how to put the pieces together. That's all. More than anything else, with half this stuff, I think the problem most of us encounter in terms of using it is we get overwhelmed and we're not patient mostly with ourselves. So then we have a hard time learning, because when your level of frustration is high, your mind is closed. You can't let stuff in. So it's important to, when I sit down to learn a new app, I relax first. I literally focus on my breathing. I slow down my breathing. I calm myself down, because I know I need to be patient, mostly with myself, because I'm about to learn something new, something I don't already know, right?
I get hyper.
Yeah, me too.
And then I go too fast because my brain goes so fast. I have to actually.
We know what I do there, Sarah. Here's a tip. What I do when I get into that mode mentally, that now I'm back to using Microsoft OneNote. I whip out OneNote and I just write whatever's in my head and get it out.
Adore
and then
my
I can go learn, because my worry is I'm going to forget. I have all these great ideas. I'm going to forget.
My brain dump.
Purge them. Yep, purge them onto a note. If you prefer to write by hand, that's fine. But purge that thought process, that stream of consciousness. Then take the deep breath and get focused.
And that's what I've been doing. I've had my OneNote open, and I think of something, I go, and I just ask, that question, and how would I do that, and just jump in it. And the way my mind works, I'm still going over in my head my meeting from this morning on another potential client. So now I've got.
Right.
This is great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining. The recording will get posted up usually at some point tomorrow. And I'll email everyone. I believe everyone who's registering is automatically getting added to my Zoom list, so that I can email you and let you know when the recording is up and what's happening. Next week, there's not going to be a Zoom. I'm going to be out of town next week. So no Zoom next week. We will have another wonderful, spectacular Zoom in 2 weeks from today.
Unacceptable.
No, Seth.
Thanks, Seth.
Next week's Zoom is going to be run by Greg Cullup.
Greg Cullup and Matt Fulton. We'll do it for you.
All right, we'll figure something out.
We just can't not do something on Friday.
Right?
Okay. All right, we'll figure something out. We'll get a surrogate. We'll get a surrogate nerd in there.
There you go, Greg. There's your opening.
Thank you.
I have a client who is a surrogacy broker, and that's
okay.
Fun.
Really?
Yeah, maybe we'll do something with that.
Interesting. All
That's
right.
a hell of a database. Okay. Have a nice weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.